Hi, today on Raven's Kitchen I'm going to be showing you how to make caramel corn. The ingredients that you'll need are regular popping corn, pure baking soda, vanilla, corn syrup, salt, brown sugar, and butter. I'm going to be using this air popper here, but if you have just the regular bag of popcorn, as long as it's unbuttered, it'll work. So let's get started. So the first step is to pop your popcorn. If you're using an air popper like I did, you're going to be using about half a cup of popcorn kernels. If you're using the microwavable popcorn bags that are unbuttered, you're going to be using about 2 bags. The next step is to make our caramel. So here we go. So before we get started on making our caramel, you need to preset your oven to 250, and I've already done so. So now let's get started on our caramel. You're going to take your stick of butter, put it in your saucepan, and turn it on medium heat. And you're going to let that melt all the way down. Now that your butter is all the way melted, you're going to be adding your brown sugar to it. And that's 2 cups of brown sugar. 1 cup. Two cups. Next is your corn syrup, and you're going to be adding half a cup of corn syrup. And I'm using a heat-proof spatula so I don't end up melting my spatula while I'm doing this. And next is your teaspoon of salt. You're going to stir this all together until it's fully incorporated. And you're just going to keep stirring it until it starts to boil. Once it starts to boil, you're going to let it sit for 4 minutes while it's boiling. And you're not going to want to touch it because that'll affect the way that the caramel turns out. So keep stirring until I bring it up to a boil. And everybody's oven is going to be different. Mine happens to be like an energy-proof one, energy saver oven. So it kind of turns up and then shuts off, so I have to adjust the heat. So it's almost to a boil now. Turn it up a little bit more. Alright, once it starts to bubble like that, then you're just going to take your spatula out and let it sit for 4 minutes. So I'll be back. Okay, so when your caramel starts to look frothy and bubbly like this, that's when it's done. So you shut your heat off, and I set it to the side so it doesn't cook anymore. Then you're going to add your teaspoon of vanilla. And you have to be careful when doing this because it does tend to bubble up. And your 1/4 of a teaspoon baking soda. And then you're going to stir it together. Just make sure the baking soda and the vanilla are fully incorporated into the caramel sauce. So when it looks like this, it's all set. Now you're going to take your popped popcorn and stick it into a glass pan. Ooh. I use glass just because it's easier cleanup. And then you take your caramel and you drizzle it over the top, like so. Make sure to kind of spread it out while you're drizzling it so it's less work for you. And then you take your heat-proof spatula and you just start to turn the popcorn into the caramel. And the first time you start to turn it, it's not a big deal if you don't hit every kernel, because you're going to put it in the oven and bake it for an hour, and every 15 minutes during that hour you're going to stir the caramel into the corn, and eventually after that hour all the corn is going to be coated with the caramel. So the first time you do this, the kernels don't have to be fully coated with the caramel. Like this right here is good enough. So I'm going to stop here, and then I'm going to put it in my 250-degree oven for 15 minutes for the first turn. And I'll see you in 15 minutes. So now that the first 15 minutes are up, I'm going to take the caramel corn out of the oven and stir it up. And this is what it looks like after the first 15 minutes. You just take your heat-proof spatula again and just kind of fold the popcorn into the caramel. And you see with each time that you stir it up, more caramel is going to get onto the popcorn. It seems like a lot of work, you know, for the whole hour. Every 15 minutes you have to take the popcorn out and stir the caramel, but it really is worth it in the end, because it's delicious. Alright, that's good enough for the first turn. Now we're going to stick it back into the oven for another 15 minutes. Now that the hour is over, I'm going to take the popcorn out of the oven and show you what it looks like when it's finished. And this is what it looks like when it's all done. As you can see, it's fully coated. I like to give it one last turn while it's still hot in the pan. And kind of break it up a little bit so it's easier to get it into the bowl. And here is kind of the tricky part. You have to have a little bit of muscle to get it out of the pan. I'm going to take my bowl that I've actually popped the popcorn in before and take this pan, and I'm just going to scoop it out. You have to be very careful not to burn yourself here, because the caramel sticks to your skin and it's hard to get it off. And here is where you start to break it up into little pieces. Because once it's out of the oven, it's going to be like one big giant piece of caramel corn. So you're just going to keep stirring it. And after about 5 minutes, it should be cool enough to eat. And that's it. That's how you make caramel corn. Thank you for watching Raven's Kitchen. Please subscribe.